I'm Hassan, 32 years old, and grew up living in the shadow of my perfect sister Jasmine. My mother worshipped the ground she walked on, while I could never do anything right. When I finally stood up for myself, after years of taking the blame for her mistakes, my mother spoke words that can never be taken back. "I wish I'd aborted you." That moment changed everything, forcing me to stand my ground and watch as the truth eventually came to light. Before I dive into my story, let me know where you're watching from. Hit that like and subscribe button and prepare yourself for a journey of betrayal that ultimately led to my freedom. Growing up in suburban Chicago in the 90s, our red brick two-story home projected an image of the perfect middle-class American family. My parents, Sarah and Robert, had steady jobs and provided everything we needed materially. But beneath that polished exterior lived a deeply dysfunctional dynamic that shaped my entire childhood. From my earliest memories, the favoritism toward my sister Jasmine was undeniable. 3 years, my junior Jasmine somehow commanded the center of our family universe. My mother, Sarah, a high school English teacher, looked at Jasmine with a pride and adoration that I never experienced. Those same eyes turned critical and disappointed whenever they landed on me. "Hassan, why can't you be more like your sister?" became the soundtrack of my childhood, playing on repeat through elementary school, middle school, and beyond. The comparisons were constant and always unfavorable. Dad was physically present but emotionally absent most of the time. Robert worked long hours at his accounting firm, coming home exhausted and retreating to his study after dinner. When conflicts arose, he would mutter something about working things out before disappearing behind his office door. His absence created a vacuum that allowed my mother's favoritism to flourish, unchecked. One incident stands out from when I was 8 and Jasmine was 5. Mom had received an expensive crystal vase as a gift from her sister. One afternoon, while Mom was grocery shopping, Jasmine decided to play baseball in the living room. Predictably, the vase shattered. When Mom returned and discovered the broken pieces, Jasmine immediately pointed at me. "Hassan did it," she declared, her brown eyes wide with false innocence. Before I could defend myself, Mom erupted. "How could you be so careless, so irresponsible?" She sent me to my room without dinner that night. Later, I overheard Jasmine giggling with Mom downstairs over ice cream. That was the first time I understood clearly in our house there were different rules for different children. Despite the emotional neglect at home, I excelled academically. My 4th grade teacher, Mrs. Calloway, was the first adult who seemed to recognize my potential. She recommended me for the gifted program after I scored in the 99th percentile on standardized tests. When I brought home the acceptance letter, Mom glanced at it and said, "That's nice," before turning her attention back to Jasmine's art project that had received a participation award at school. Dad signed the permission form without looking up from his newspaper. That night, they took us out to dinner, ostensibly to celebrate my achievement. But the conversation centered entirely around Jasmine's upcoming dance recital. Middle school brought new academic triumphs that went largely unacknowledged at home. I won the regional science fair with a project on alternative energy sources. The local newspaper even published a small article about it. Mom hung it on the refrigerator, but complained that the photographer had caught me at a bad angle. 2 weeks later, when Jasmine placed 3rd in a spelling bee, Mom threw a party and invited the extended family. The contrast was painful, but no longer surprising. The only person who truly saw what was happening was our next-door neighbor, Tyler. 2 years older than me, Tyler became the brother I never had. His parents often invited me over for dinner, and their home became my sanctuary. In their dining room, I could speak without being interrupted or corrected. Tyler's mom, Laura, asked about my day and actually listened to the answer. "You know your family's messed up, right?" Tyler said one day as we shot baskets in his driveway. "The way they treat you compared to your sister. It's not normal, Hassan." Until that moment, I had never considered that our family dynamic wasn't universal. Tyler's observation opened my eyes to the possibility that the problem wasn't me. It was the first glimmer of validation I'd experienced. By high school, I had developed effective coping mechanisms. I became entirely self-reliant, stopping any attempts to seek approval from my parents. I found validation in academic achievements, the respect of my teachers, and my small circle of loyal friends. I worked part-time at the local library, saving every dollar for college. I understood that my escape would come through education. My high school graduation should have been my moment. Valedictorian with a full scholarship to Northwestern University, I had defied the low expectations set for me at home. But somehow, Jasmine managed to make it about herself. During the ceremony, she loudly told everyone around her that she had helped me study for years. At the small family gathering afterward, she announced her acceptance to community college drawing, congratulations that overshadowed my achievement. Mom fussed over Jasmine's hair for photos, while Dad awkwardly patted my shoulder and said, "Good job, son." The pattern continued, but I was counting down the days until I could create distance between myself and the family that never saw me. Northwestern University became my sanctuary. The Chicago campus, with its Gothic architecture and lakefront views, represented more than educational opportunity. It was freedom from the suffocating dynamics of home. I threw myself into my computer science program, finding comfort in the logical world of algorithms and code, where effort correlated directly with results. College life introduced me to people who valued me for my actual qualities, rather than measuring me against someone else. My roommate Marcus became a close friend, who couldn't understand why I rarely mentioned my family. "Don't your parents want to visit campus?" he asked once. I changed the subject, unwilling to reveal the truth. I preferred keeping those worlds separate. To cover expenses beyond my scholarship, I worked 20 hours weekly at the campus tech support center. The job reinforced my growing expertise while teaching me valuable people skills. Meanwhile, each holiday break brought the dreaded return home, where nothing had changed, except, perhaps, intensified. During my sophomore year, Jasmine dropped out of community college after 3 failed semesters. Mom called to explain, her voice defensive. "College isn't for everyone, Hassan. Jasmine is more creative than academic. She needs time to find her path." This pathfinding involved Jasmine moving back home, sleeping until noon, and cycling through minimum wage jobs she couldn't keep. Mom enabled this behavior, making excuses when Jasmine missed shifts or quit without notice. "She's sensitive," Mom would say. The manager was too demanding. There was always a reason, never a consequence. When I graduated with honors in computer science, my parents attended the ceremony but left immediately after to attend Jasmine's 21st birthday dinner. She couldn't postpone her celebration by even one day to acknowledge my achievement. I sat alone in my apartment that evening, surrounded by packed boxes, feeling both hurt and relieved. The pain was familiar, but the freedom of knowing I would never depend on them again was powerful. I landed a position at a respected tech firm in downtown Chicago, securing financial independence and the validation of being wanted for my skills. My starting salary exceeded what my father earned after decades at his firm. This new chapter should have been entirely positive, but family dynamics continued to cast shadows. Family gatherings became increasingly tense. Thanksgiving dinner, my first year post-graduation, devolved into Mother listing Jasmine's challenges and suggesting I should help more. "You're doing so well now," she said, eyeing me over her wine glass. "Surely you could spare something to help your sister get back on her feet." The something turned out to be money. Jasmine had accumulated credit card debt, buying designer clothes and taking weekend trips with friends while unemployed. Mother expected me to loan Jasmine several $1,000s to clear these debts. When I refused, suggesting Jasmine needed to face consequences for her choices, Mother's expression hardened. "Family helps family," she said coldly. "I guess success has made you selfish." Dad remained silent throughout this exchange, staring at his plate. His passivity was its own form of betrayal. Later, he cornered me in the hallway and slipped me $100. "For gas," he said awkwardly. Though my salary made such gifts unnecessary, I realized he was trying in his limited way to acknowledge the unfairness. But it was too little, far too late. Around this time, Dad's health began showing warning signs. During phone calls, Mom mentioned his high blood pressure, his cholesterol levels, the stress of his job. She never explicitly asked me to visit more often, but the implication was clear: I was neglecting my family obligations while Dad's health deteriorated. What she failed to mention was how Jasmine's behavior contributed to his stress. I learned from my aunt that Jasmine had borrowed Dad's car and returned it with a damaged fender, offering no explanation or apology. Mom had prevented Dad from confronting Jasmine. insisting he not upset her. My infrequent visits home revealed an increasingly concerning pattern. Jasmine, now 23, had developed expensive habits without the income to support them. New clothes appeared in her closet weekly. She drove a newer car than either of my parents. When I questioned how she afforded these things on her sporadic income from retail jobs, Mom quickly changed the subject. The emotional toll of maintaining even limited contact with my family led me to seek therapy. Dr. Karen Wilson helped me recognize the toxic patterns that had shaped my development and continued to affect my adult relationships. "You've internalized the message that your needs don't matter," she observed during one session. "That's affecting how you set boundaries in all your relationships." She was right. I had been recreating familiar dynamics with friends and colleagues, overextending myself while expecting little in return. This insight prompted painful but necessary growth as I learned to value myself and establish healthier boundaries. Around this time, I met Rebecca at a mutual friend's dinner party. Smart, compassionate, and perceptive, she worked as a pediatric nurse and shared my love for hiking and independent films. Our relationship developed slowly as I cautiously revealed layers of myself, including my complicated family history. Rather than judging, she listened with genuine empathy. "Your family trained you to doubt your worth," she said one evening as we walked along Lake Michigan. "But that narrative isn't true, and it never was." Rebecca's clarity helped me see my family's situation with new eyes. She accompanied me on a Christmas visit, witnessing firsthand the dynamics I had described. Afterwards, she commented, "I thought maybe you were exaggerating about your mom's behavior, but if anything, you underplayed it." Her validation strengthened my resolve to maintain emotional distance while pursuing my own happiness. However, family has a way of pulling you back in, especially when crisis strikes. And our family's crisis was rapidly approaching. The call came on a Tuesday evening in March. I was reviewing code at my apartment when my phone displayed Dad's cell. Unusual since Mom typically made family calls. My stomach tightened instinctively. Hassan, Dad's voice sounded strange, breathless. "Your mother wanted me to call. I had a heart attack this morning. I'm at Northwestern Memorial." The world seemed to tilt sideways. Despite our complicated relationship, the thought of losing my father hit me hard. Within an hour, I was at the hospital navigating the sterile corridors to his room. Mom sat beside his bed, her face drawn and pale. Jasmine was noticeably absent. "Where's Jasmine?" I asked, after greeting them and assessing Dad's condition. "She's very upset," Mom replied defensively. "She'll come when she's ready." Dad looked smaller somehow in the hospital bed, connected to monitors and an IV. His color was poor, but the doctors had assured them the heart attack was relatively mild. With medication and lifestyle changes, he could make a full recovery. I felt profound relief mixed with lingering concern. While Mom went to call relatives, Dad and I had a rare moment alone. He seemed contemplative, perhaps confronting his mortality for the first time. "I should have been around more," he said suddenly. "For you especially." Before I could respond to this unprecedented acknowledgement, Mom returned, and the moment passed. That evening, I offered to bring Dad's laptop and some files from his home office so he could manage essential work remotely during recovery. Searching for the requested documents in his home office, I discovered something disturbing. Several credit card statements lay open on his desk, with charges circled in red pen. Designer stores, restaurants, online shopping sites, thousands of dollars in expenses that seemed out of character for my frugal father. Next to these statements lay a handwritten list titled Jasmine, with amounts and dates. A sick feeling settled in my stomach as the pieces connected. I found additional statements in his desk drawer, revealing over $12,000 in unexplained charges over the past 4 months. The pattern was clear. Jasmine had been using Dad's credit cards without permission. When Jasmine finally appeared at the hospital the next morning, I asked her to join me in the cafeteria. Away from our parents, I placed the statements on the table between us. "Want to explain these?" I kept my voice low and steady. Her expression cycled rapidly from confusion to recognition to panic. "It's not what you think," she stammered. "Dad gave you permission to spend $12,000 on clothes and restaurants?" I asked incredulously. Tears welled in her eyes. "I was going to pay him back," she whispered. "I just needed to get on my feet first. You don't understand how hard things have been for me. You've been living rent-free with Mom and Dad while working sporadically, if at all, I replied. Meanwhile, Dad's been working 60-hour weeks despite his health problems, and now he's in the hospital. Jasmine's tears flowed freely now. Please don't tell them, she begged. Mom will be so disappointed in me. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But years of enabling had created this situation, and more secrets would only prolong the dysfunction. You have 24 hours to tell them yourself, I said firmly. Or I will. She left the cafeteria without another word. I spent a restless night in my old bedroom, debating whether I had made the right decision. Part of me wanted to protect Dad from additional stress during his recovery. But the larger truth was, unavoidable secrets were killing our family slowly. The next afternoon we gathered in Dad's hospital room. He looked stronger sitting up and discussing discharge plans with Mom. Jasmine arrived last, her expression unreadable. I nodded slightly, encouraging her to fulfill her promise, but she avoided my gaze. As a nurse checked Dad's vital signs, Jasmine suddenly spoke up. I need to tell you all something, she began, her voice quavering. My respect for her briefly surged, thinking she was taking responsibility. Then she continued. Hassan has been using Dad's credit cards. The room fell silent. Mom turned to me, her expression instantly hardening. How could you? She demanded. Your father is lying here after a heart attack, and you've been stealing from him. The accusation was so outrageous that for a moment I couldn't form words. Dad looked confused, glancing between Jasmine and me. That's not true, I finally managed. Jasmine has been using the cards. I found the statements yesterday. He's lying. Jasmine countered, tears streaming down her face. He's always been jealous of me. He's trying to turn you against me. Mom moved to Jasmine's side, wrapping a protective arm around her shoulders. I knew something was wrong when you wanted access to the office, she said, glaring at me. You've always resented your sister's place in this family. The familiar injustice threatened to overwhelm me, but this time was different. I was no longer a powerless child. I pulled out my phone and placed it on the bedside table. I took photos of Dad's handwritten notes connecting the charges to Jasmine, I said calmly. I also called 2 of the stores. They have security footage of Jasmine using the card. Would you like me to show you? Jasmine's story began crumbling. Okay, I used the cards a few times, she admitted, shifting tactics. But Hassan told me it was okay because Dad lets him use them all the time. I've never used Dad's cards, I stated flatly. Not once. Dad finally spoke up, his voice, weak but clear. Jasmine, enough. I've known about the charges for months. I just didn't want to believe it was you. Jasmine's face crumpled as her last defense vanished. She collapsed into dramatic sobs, drawing Mom closer. Even now, Mom's instinct was to comfort and protect her. She made a mistake, Mom insisted. She's young. She didn't understand the consequences. She's 24, I countered. She knew exactly what she was doing. Mom's face flushed with anger. Why are you being so hard on her? Why can't you just let this go? Take some responsibility for once in your life and help your family. Take responsibility, I echoed, incredulous. You want me to take responsibility for Jasmine stealing $12,000? Family protects family. Mom insisted, her voice rising. Your sister made a mistake. If you really cared about your father's recovery, you'd help fix this instead of making it worse. Something inside me snapped. Decades of suppressed feelings surged forward as I finally confronted the fundamental injustice that had shaped my life. I have spent my entire life taking blame for Jasmine's mistakes. I said, my voice shaking with emotion. I have watched you excuse her behavior while holding me to impossible standards. I have worked and studied and built a life despite not because of this family. I will not take the blame for this. Not this time. Mom's face contorted with rage unlike anything I had seen before. You, ungrateful, selfish boy, she hissed. After everything we've done for you, after all the sacrifices, sometimes I look at you and think I made the biggest mistake of my life. I wish I'd aborted you when I had the chance. The words hung in the air like poison. Dad's monitor beeped steadily in the background. Jasmine's sobs quieted as even she seemed shocked by Mom's statement. I felt strangely calm, as though the worst had finally happened, and now I could breathe. "Thank you for finally being honest," I said quietly. I gathered my jacket and walked out, ignoring Mom's calls to come back. In the hospital corridor, surrounded by strangers rushing past, I felt simultaneously shattered and liberated. The unthinkable had been said aloud, but in that brutal honesty, I found permission to finally walk away. The drive from Northwestern Memorial to my apartment passed in a blur. Traffic lights, pedestrians, other vehicles all seemed distant and unreal compared to the words echoing in my head. "I wish I'd aborted you." 5 words that crystallized a lifetime of rejection. Rebecca found me sitting in darkness when she returned from her evening shift. She didn't turn on lights or bombard me with questions. Instead, she sat beside me, her presence, an anchor, as I recounted what had happened. When I reached Mom's final statement, Rebecca gasped. "No parent should ever say that to their child," she whispered, her voice tight with anger, "no matter what." That night, as I drifted in and out of restless sleep, my phone vibrated constantly with texts from Mom. I finally checked them around 3 in the morning. "You need to apologize for upsetting your sister. Your father's condition is worse because of the stress you caused. Call me immediately. We need to fix this before it tears the family apart. Why are you so selfish? Always thinking of yourself." The messages continued escalating in hostility without a hint of remorse for her own words. By morning, they had evolved into outright threats. "If you don't make this right, don't consider yourself part of this family anymore." I blocked her number, then Jasmine's as well, when similar messages started arriving from her. The relief was immediate, like setting down a heavy burden I had carried for decades. My therapist, Dr. Wilson, squeezed me in for an emergency session that afternoon. "What your mother said is emotional abuse," she stated unequivocally. "It crosses a line that can't be uncrossed." "Part of me still wants to fix things," I admitted. "To make her take it back." "That's natural," Dr. Wilson replied. "We're programmed to seek parental approval. But sometimes the healthiest thing we can do is accept that we can't change others, we can only change how we respond to them." She helped me develop a plan for maintaining firm boundaries, while processing my grief. Because that's what it was. Grief for the loving family I never had, and now accepted I never would. 3 days after the hospital confrontation, Dad called from a number I didn't recognize. Hassan. His voice sounded older, fragile. "I'm sorry about what happened. Your mother was upset. She didn't mean what she said." "She meant it, Dad," I replied quietly. "She's always meant it. She just finally said it out loud." His silence confirmed my words. Eventually he sighed. "I should have protected you better." It was the closest thing to validation he had ever offered, but it came wrapped in his characteristic passivity. Even now, he wouldn't directly acknowledge Mom's behavior or stand firmly against it. He ended the call promising to talk to her about apologizing, which told me he still didn't understand the depth of the breach. Work provided structure during the chaos. I requested 2 weeks off to process what had happened, explaining to my manager Patrick that I was dealing with family issues. His response surprised me. "Take the time you need," he said. "Family stuff can be worse than any technical problem we face here." Those 2 weeks became a period of intense reflection. I pored over childhood memories, recognizing patterns I had normalized. Rebecca suggested we start looking for a new apartment together, something that had been on the horizon, but now felt urgent, a fresh start. "We can create our own definition of family," she said one evening, as we browsed listings online, one built on mutual respect and genuine love. The idea was both terrifying and exhilarating. Could I really leave behind the pursuit of approval that had driven me for so long? Could I accept that some relationships couldn't be fixed? Just as I was beginning to find equilibrium, Mom escalated dramatically. She appeared at my workplace unannounced, demanding to see me. The receptionist, alarmed by her behavior, called security. Mom created a scene in the lobby, shouting about ungrateful children and family loyalty, as 2 guards escorted her outside. Patrick called me into his office afterward. I braced for reprimand, possibly termination. Instead, he offered understanding. "My mother was an alcoholic," he shared unexpectedly. "Created similar scenes when I finally set boundaries. It gets better, Hassan. Not because they change, but because you get stronger." His words offered unexpected comfort. Perhaps I wasn't alone in this struggle. Perhaps others had walked this path before me and found peace on the other side. Rebecca and I found a new apartment across town and moved the following weekend. I changed my phone number, providing it only to people I trusted absolutely. For the first time, I created physical distance to match the emotional boundaries I was establishing. Extended family members began taking sides without seeking my perspective. Aunt Julia called to berate me for breaking your mother's heart and abandoning family when they need you most. Uncle Michael sent a text suggesting I swallow my pride for your father's sake. Only my cousin David reached out with genuine concern, asking if I was okay and offering support without judgment. 3 months passed with no direct contact from my parents or Jasmine. Through David, I learned Dad had recovered and returned to work part-time. Mom had told everyone I was having emotional problems and asked for prayer. Jasmine had moved into a new apartment with a boyfriend, apparently stable for the moment. I focused on rebuilding my life without the constant drain of toxic family dynamics. Rebecca and I settled into our new home. I earned a promotion at work. We adopted a golden retriever named Cooper, who never judged or compared me to anyone. Slowly, I began to recognize my own worth without external validation. But family connections are never fully severed, especially when unresolved trauma remains. The next chapter would arrive unexpectedly, forcing me to confront the past one final time. On a rainy Tuesday in October, 6 months after the hospital confrontation, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Normally, I would have let it go to voicemail, but something prompted me to answer. Hassan, it's Uncle Peter, my father's brother who had always maintained a polite distance from family drama. Your dad had another heart attack last night, more severe this time. He's asking for you. My stomach dropped. Despite everything, the thought of losing my father filled me with dread. Is he going to make it? The doctors are cautiously optimistic, but it was a close call. He's at Northwestern Memorial again. Uncle Peter paused. Your mother and Jasmine aren't here right now. If you wanted to visit without seeing them. An hour later, I stood outside Dad's hospital room, heart pounding. Through the window, I could see him looking dramatically frailer than before. Oxygen tubes in his nose monitors tracking his vital signs. I took a deep breath and entered. Dad's eyes brightened when he saw me. Hassan, he whispered, you came. Of course I came, I replied, taking the chair beside his bed. How are you feeling? Like an elephant sat on my chest, he attempted a weak smile. The doctors say, I need to make serious lifestyle changes this time. We talked about his condition, his treatment plan, safe topics that avoided the family-shaped hole in the conversation. Eventually, though, the unspoken drew too large to ignore. Your mother doesn't know I called you through, Peter, Dad admitted. She's at home resting. Jasmine's with her. I nodded, unsurprised. I'm not here to cause problems, Dad. I just wanted to make sure you're okay. Dad's expression shifted, something resolute forming in his tired features. I've had a lot of time to think these past months, he said slowly. Facing your mortality twice in 1 year changes your perspective. He reached for my hand, an uncharacteristic gesture. I failed you, Hassan. I've always known what was happening, and I did nothing to stop it. The admission I had waited decades to hear left me speechless. Dad continued, his voice gaining strength. When you were little, I told myself it wasn't that bad, that all parents have a special bond with one child or another, that you were strong enough to handle it. He closed his eyes briefly, but that was cowardice. I was absent because it was easier than confronting your mother's behavior. Why? I finally managed to ask. Why did she always favor Jasmine? Dad sighed deeply. It's complicated. Partly because Jasmine reminds her of herself. The neediness, the drama. Your mother responds to that. You've always been more like me, self-sufficient, logical. She interpreted that as rejection. He paused. But there's more to it. Things I've only recently discovered myself. He reached for a drawer in his bedside table, removing a folder. After you left that day, I started paying more attention. Looking at bank statements, credit card bills, listening more carefully to Jasmine's stories. Inside the folder were printouts of email exchanges, bank transfers, credit card statements, and handwritten notes. Dad spread them across the blanket. Jasmine hasn't just been stealing from me, he said grimly. She's been manipulating everyone in the family for years. She borrowed $8,000 from Aunt Ruth, claiming she needed emergency dental surgery. She told Uncle Michael I had agreed to repay a $5,000 loan she took from him. I leafed through the evidence, stunned by the extent of Jasmine's deceptions. Does Mom know about this? She's still in denial, but the evidence is overwhelming. Dad's expression hardened. Jasmine convinced your mother that you were spreading lies about her to the family. She showed her fake text messages, supposedly from you saying horrible things about your mother. The pieces finally clicked into place. Mom's escalating hostility, her showing up at my workplace, the family members turning against me, all orchestrated by Jasmine to deflect attention from her own actions. Why would she go to such lengths, I wondered aloud. Because she's never faced consequences, Dad replied simply. Because I taught her she could behave any way she wanted, and someone would clean up her mess. He looked at me directly. I enabled this dysfunction out of guilt for being an absent father. I thought indulging Jasmine compensated for not being there. Instead, I created a monster and sacrificed my relationship with you in the process. His honesty was both painful and healing. For the first time, someone was acknowledging the reality I had lived with for years. I don't expect forgiveness, Dad continued, but I want you to know I'm seeing things clearly now, and I'm trying to make changes starting with myself. I felt tears threatening. I appreciate that, Dad. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of decades shifting between us. Finally, Dad spoke again. I need to ask something difficult of you. Would you consider meeting with your mother with me present? She needs to face reality, and I think hearing the truth from you might finally break through her denial. My instinct was immediate refusal. The thought of facing Mom again, risking more abuse, seemed unbearable. But looking at Dad's fragile state, I realized this might be my only chance for resolution. I'll do it for you, Dad. But I need to set some conditions. 2 days later, Mom arrived at the hospital for what she thought was a routine visit with Dad. Her face froze when she saw me sitting beside his bed. What is he doing here? She demanded, not addressing me directly. Sarah, sit down, Dad said firmly. It's time we talked honestly as a family. There's nothing to discuss, she replied coldly. Hassan made his choice when he abandoned this family. I didn't abandon anyone I countered, keeping my voice level. I removed myself from an abusive situation after you told me you wished I had never been born. Mom flinched slightly but maintained her defensive posture. You were cruel to your sister. You accused her of terrible things. Sarah, Dad interrupted. I have proof of everything Hassan said about Jasmine using my credit cards. And more. Much more. He gestured to the folder on his lap. Reluctantly, Mom sat and began reviewing the documents. Her face paled as she progressed through the evidence. These could be misunderstandings, she protested weakly. Jasmine wouldn't deliberately. Her sentence trailed off as Dad showed her the final document, a police report filed by a department store regarding credit card fraud. The report included security camera images of Jasmine using a card in my name that I had never authorized. She opened a credit card in Hassan's name, Dad explained gently. She's been damaging his credit while telling us he's the irresponsible one. Mom's hands trembled as she set down the papers. Her carefully constructed reality was crumbling. Just then, the door opened and Jasmine walked in. Mom, I brought you that coffee She stopped abruptly upon seeing me. What's going on? The atmosphere in the room thickened with tension. Dad spoke first. We're discussing the credit card fraud, Jasmine, and the loans from family members, and the lies about Hassan. Jasmine's expression cycled rapidly through confusion, indignation, and finally, calculation. I can explain everything, she began, her voice taking on the familiar, tremulous quality that usually preceded tears. Save it, I interrupted. The evidence is right there. This isn't about punishing you. It's about finally acknowledging the truth so this family can stop destroying itself. Jasmine's demeanor changed instantly, her vulnerability replaced by cold anger. You've always been jealous of me, she spat. Always trying to turn them against me. Well, congratulations. You win. You've finally gotten what you wanted. She turned to leave, but Dad's voice stopped her. Jasmine, if you walk out that door, the next call I make will be to the police, to formally press charges. She froze, then slowly turned back. You wouldn't dare. Try me, Dad replied with more backbone than I had ever witnessed from him. I'm done enabling behavior that hurts this family. Sit down. We're going to talk this through like adults. What followed was the most honest conversation our family had ever experienced. Years of secrets, resentments, and manipulations surfaced. Mom vacillated between denial and horror as the full extent of Jasmine's deceptions became clear. Jasmine alternated between defiance and tearful apologies, depending on which seemed more effective moment to moment. Through it all, I maintained a calm exterior, though internally, I cycled through anger, vindication, and ultimately a profound sadness for what our family could have been. After nearly 2 hours, Jasmine stormed out, threatening vague consequences for everyone. Mom sat in stunned silence, occasionally wiping tears. Dad looked exhausted but somehow peaceful, as though a great burden had finally been set down. I should have seen it, Mom whispered eventually. I should have known. You saw what you wanted to see, I replied, not unkindly. We all did, in different ways. As I prepared to leave, Mom reached for my hand. What happens now? She asked, her voice small. I don't know, I answered honestly. But whatever it is, it has to be based on truth, not fantasy. Walking out of the hospital that evening, I felt lighter than I had in years. The truth hadn't magically fixed our broken family, but it had cleared away the toxic fog of lies and manipulations. For the first time, we could all see each other clearly, flaws, failures, and all. It wasn't reconciliation, not yet, but it was a necessary first step toward whatever came next. The full consequences of truth often unfold slowly, like a time-lapse of a collapsing structure. Over the next 6 months, Jasmine's carefully constructed world of privilege and exception crumbled piece by piece, revealing the unstable foundation beneath. 2 weeks after our hospital confrontation, she was arrested for attempting to use a fraudulent credit card at Nordstrom. The store security had been alerted to watch for her after previous incidents. This time they contacted police, instead of simply declining the transaction. Mom called me in tears. Jasmine's in jail, she sobbed. They're charging her with credit card fraud. She needs $10,000 for bail. And you're calling me because... I asked, already knowing the answer. Because we don't have it, Mom admitted. Your father's medical bills, the credit card debt she already racked up. We're tapped out. The old Hassan would have capitulated, finding some way to rescue the family despite the personal cost. The new Hassan recognized this as another teaching moment. Mom bailing Jasmine out won't help her. It will just continue the cycle. So you're just going to let your sister sit in jail? Her voice rose accusingly. Jasmine is 24 years old. She made choices, and now she's experiencing consequences. That's how life works for most people. Mom hung up abruptly. Later that evening, Dad called from his cell phone. Your mother's upset, he began, but I want you to know I agree with your position. Jasmine needs to face reality this time. His support, though belated, meant more than I expected. Jasmine spent 2 nights in county lockup before Mom scraped together enough for bail by borrowing from a cousin. The experience apparently shocked Jasmine. She called me the following week, her voice lacking its usual manipulative undertone. I messed up, Hassan, she said simply. I messed up bad. Yes, you did. I agreed, offering neither absolution nor condemnation. I don't know how to fix it, she continued. Everything's falling apart. My boyfriend left when he found out about the arrest. I might lose my apartment. Mom and Dad are fighting constantly. Part of me wanted to rush in with solutions, fulfilling my lifelong role as family fixer. Instead, I took a deep breath and offered something more valuable. I can't fix this for you, Jasmine, but I can recommend a good therapist, and there are credit counseling services that might help you make a plan. She seemed disappointed by my response, perhaps expecting financial rescue, but she took the information before ending the call. Whether she would use it remained to be seen. Meanwhile, Dad's recovery progressed steadily. He made significant lifestyle changes, retiring from his high-stress accounting position, starting a regular walking routine, improving his diet. During our weekly phone conversations, he seemed more present than he had been throughout my childhood. I've been seeing a therapist too, he revealed during one call, trying to understand how I contributed to the family dynamics. It's not comfortable work, but it's necessary. Mom's journey proved more challenging. Her identity had been so thoroughly intertwined with Jasmine's that separating reality from fiction caused a kind of psychological earthquake. She alternated between periods of clarity, where she acknowledged the damage done, and regression, where she sought to re-establish the old patterns. 3 months after Jasmine's arrest, her case went to court. The evidence was overwhelming security footage. Transaction records multiple incidents across different stores. Her public defender negotiated a plea deal, probation for 3 years, mandatory financial counseling, and full restitution to all victims, including family members. The judge made it clear that any violation of probation would result in jail time. For perhaps the first time, Jasmine faced boundaries that couldn't be manipulated or charmed away. The legal consequences were just the beginning of Jasmine's reckoning. Without financial support from our parents, she couldn't maintain her apartment and was evicted the following month. Her boyfriend, initially drawn to her charismatic personality and seemingly carefree lifestyle, wanted nothing to do with her legal troubles and mounting debts. 4 months after the arrest, I received another call from Mom, her voice different, humbled, perhaps even broken. "Hassan, I need your help," she began. "Not money," she added quickly. "Advice. Jasmine's coming home to live with us temporarily. I don't know how to set proper boundaries after all these years." It was the first time Mom had ever acknowledged her enabling behavior or sought guidance about changing it. Progress, however small. "I can't tell you what to do, Mom," I replied carefully, "but I can share resources that have helped me understand healthy family dynamics." I emailed her articles and book recommendations about setting boundaries and recognizing manipulation. Whether she would read them was uncertain, but the request itself represented a significant shift. 5 months after the confrontation, Dad invited me to dinner, just the two of us. We met at a quiet Italian restaurant halfway between our homes. "Your mother is seeing a therapist now too," he shared as we waited for our food. "She fought it at first, but after Jasmine moved back home and immediately started the same old patterns, something finally clicked." "How's that going?" I asked, genuinely curious. "Painful," Dad admitted. "She's having to confront some hard truths about herself, not just Jasmine. The therapist suggested there might be some undiagnosed issues with both of them, borderline personality traits, perhaps narcissistic tendencies. It's complicated." "And you?" I asked. "How are you holding up with all this?" Dad looked thoughtful. "Better than I would have expected. Having a second heart attack clarifies your priorities. I'm focusing on rebuilding what matters." He met my eyes directly. "Including my relationship with you, if you're willing." The simple acknowledgement brought unexpected emotion. We established a routine of meeting for dinner twice monthly, gradually rebuilding trust through honest conversation. Dad slowly revealed more about his own upbringing, his emotionally distant father, his struggles with depression that he had hidden for decades, his regrets about emotional absence during my childhood. 6 months after the hospital confrontation, Mom suggested a family dinner at their house. I agreed, with Rebecca accompanying me for support. The atmosphere was awkward, but less toxic than previous gatherings. Jasmine sat sullenly at the table, clearly unhappy about the new household rules. Mom and Dad had established rent payment chore responsibilities, no borrowing of credit cards or vehicles. After dinner, Mom pulled me aside in the kitchen. Her attempt at apology was imperfect but sincere. "I've been thinking a lot about things I said," she began hesitantly, "especially that day in the hospital. I was wrong to say what I said. I was angry and afraid, but that's no excuse." "No, it isn't." I agreed, neither accepting nor rejecting her apology outright. She looked down at her hands. "The therapist says, I've been projecting my own insecurities onto you since you were little, seeing qualities in you that reminded me of parts of myself I didn't like." She sighed. "It's hard to hear, but I think she's right." It wasn't a complete acknowledgement of the damage done, but it was more self-awareness than Mom had ever demonstrated before. Small steps, but in the right direction. As for Jasmine, her journey would be longer and more difficult. The court-mandated financial counseling forced her to confront the consequences of her actions in concrete terms. The restitution payments would take years to complete. Her probation restrictions limited her freedom in ways she had never experienced. One afternoon, I received a text from her. "I hate this, but maybe I needed it." Those 7 words contained more honesty than she had shown in years. They offered a glimmer of hope that perhaps with proper boundaries and professional help, even Jasmine might eventually find a healthier path. By the time 7 months had passed since that fateful day in the hospital, our family landscape had transformed dramatically. Jasmine had found an entry-level job in another state, a fresh start away from old patterns. Mom's health had suffered from the stress, but her therapy continued, gradually replacing denial with insight. Dad and I spoke regularly, building the relationship we should have had all along. As for me, I discovered that standing my ground hadn't destroyed my family as I had feared. Instead, it had cleared away the dysfunction that prevented us from having authentic connections. The process was painful, messy, and incomplete, but necessary for any hope of healing. 2 years passed, transforming us all, in ways none of us could have predicted that day in the hospital when truth finally broke through decades of deception. Life has a way of continuing its forward motion, even after events that feel world-shattering. Rebecca and I got engaged on a crisp autumn evening beside Lake Michigan. As she accepted the ring, laughing and crying simultaneously, I realized how much my perspective had shifted. I no longer viewed love as something to be earned through sacrifice and suffering. Instead, I understood it as a mutual gift, freely given and joyfully received. The question of family involvement in our wedding plans inevitably arose. Rebecca approached the subject carefully one evening as we reviewed potential venues. "Have you thought about how you want to include your parents? Or Jasmine?" The question would have triggered anxiety 2 years earlier. Now I considered it thoughtfully. I want Dad there definitely. Mom too, I think, though, with clear boundaries. Jasmine? I'm not sure yet. My relationship with each family member had evolved along different trajectories. Dad had become a steady presence in my life, our bi-weekly dinners expanding to include occasional weekend activities. He attended therapy regularly, working through his passivity and conflict avoidance. For the first time, I felt seen and valued by my father. "I wish I had done this decades ago," he told me once. "Think of the relationship we could have had all these years." "We can't change the past," I replied, "but we're writing a different story now." Mom's journey proved more complicated. Her progress came in waves, periods of genuine insight and remorse, followed by backsliding into old patterns. Her therapist diagnosed her with traits of narcissistic personality disorder, providing context for behaviors that had shaped my childhood. Understanding the diagnosis didn't excuse her actions but offered a framework for establishing healthier interactions. During one particularly honest conversation, Mom finally addressed her terrible words at the hospital. "I said the most unforgivable thing a mother could say to her child," she acknowledged, eyes downcast. "I can't take it back. I don't expect you to forgive me. But I want you to know that despite my failures as a mother, I never truly wished you didn't exist." "Then why say it?" I asked the question that had haunted me. "Because I wanted to hurt you as deeply as I felt hurt in that moment," she admitted. "When you refused to protect Jasmine, I felt like you were rejecting me too. My reaction was about my pain, not about you at all." Her honesty, though painful, offered a kind of closure. The words would always exist between us, but they no longer held the same power to wound. Jasmine's transformation proved most surprising of all. After moving to Arizona, she maintained minimal contact for several months. Then gradually, brief texts evolved into occasional phone calls. She completed a vocational program in medical billing and secured stable employment. Her probation officer reported consistent compliance with all requirements. "I'm doing the work," she told me during one call. "Therapy twice weekly, making restitution payments, living within my means for the first time ever." She paused. "It's hard, really hard, but necessary." I recognized the echo of my own words from 2 years earlier when I had refused to rescue her from consequences. Perhaps she had been listening after all. As wedding plans progressed, Rebecca and I created a day that reflected our values rather than obligations. Dad would walk with me to the altar, his suggestion, which moved me deeply. Mom would attend as a guest with boundaries clearly established beforehand. After careful consideration, I extended a conditional invitation to Jasmine, specifying expectations about behavior and responsibility. Her response surprised me. "I understand if you'd rather I not come. What happened between us can't be erased by one day of good behavior." Her self-awareness convinced me more than anything else. That real change was possible. I want you there, I told her. As the sister you're becoming, not the one you were. Beyond family reconciliation, these 2 years brought professional growth as well. I received a significant promotion at work, leading a team developing innovative software solutions. The recognition validated my technical skills, but, more importantly, my ability to build healthy, productive relationships, something that once seemed beyond my reach. Rebecca and I purchased our first home together, a craftsman bungalow with a yard for Cooper to explore. Creating this space together, painting walls, selecting furniture, planting a garden, became a physical manifestation of the life we were building. Solid, thoughtful, and intentionally designed. Perhaps the most unexpected development came when I started mentoring at a local youth center. Working with teenagers navigating difficult family situations, I discovered that my painful experiences offered valuable perspective. Without romanticizing the trauma, I could show these young people that family dysfunction need not define their future. How did you get past it? 16-year-old Marcus asked one afternoon after sharing his struggles with an alcoholic mother. I didn't get past it so much as through it, I explained. I had to accept what couldn't be changed, establish boundaries to protect myself, and build connections with people who saw and valued the real me. His thoughtful nod suggested the message resonated. In helping others navigate their pain, I found another dimension of healing for my own. Our wedding day arrived with perfect September weather sunshine, warming the lakeside ceremony space, a gentle breeze carrying the scent of late summer flowers. Dad stood tall beside me, his health fully restored, and his eyes clear with emotion. Mom sat quietly in the front row, respecting the boundaries we had established. Jasmine arrived, simply dressed her usual dramatic flair, replaced by a genuine smile and appropriate behavior throughout the day. As Rebecca and I exchanged vows, promising to choose each other daily through life's joys and challenges, I realized how profoundly my understanding of family had evolved. Family wasn't just the people who shared your DNA and childhood home. Family was created through consistent love, mutual respect, and honest communication. Looking out at the gathering Rebecca's large, boisterous clan, my smaller, complicated family constellation, friends who had become chosen family along the way, I felt a sense of peace that once seemed impossible. The journey of healing continues, of course. Mom still occasionally tests boundaries. Jasmine's recovery involves setbacks alongside progress. Dad and I navigate the complexities of building an adult father-son relationship without the foundation it should have had. These challenges no longer threaten my identity or peace, however. They're simply part of the complex tapestry of human connection. Standing your ground doesn't always mean walking away. Sometimes it means establishing the conditions under which you're willing to stay connected. It means refusing to participate in unhealthy dynamics while remaining open to genuine change. It means valuing yourself enough to require respect from others. The most profound lesson I've learned is that self-worth cannot be granted by family approval or withdrawn by family rejection. It exists independently cultivated through honesty, integrity, and courage. Standing firm in my truth didn't destroy my family, as I once feared it created the possibility for authentic relationships to eventually emerge from the ashes of fantasy and manipulation. If my story resonates with you, know that you're not alone in navigating family dysfunction. The path through is rarely straight or simple, but finding your voice and standing your ground creates possibilities that staying silent never will. Have you ever had to stand your ground in a family situation? Share your experience in the comments below. And if this story helped you feel less alone, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear it. Remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and others is to speak truth, even when it's difficult. Thank you for listening to my journey.